All right. Is the mic over here on? Oh, great. I always sound loud in my own head, but I don't know how the room perceives it. So yeah, this is about, oh no, your project became really popular. Not necessarily like over 8 million users popular, but maybe like more popular than you were expecting. So first of all, growth is good. You made something nice that people like to use. That's exciting. Like, they really, really like it. And they told their colleagues, they told their friends, they told the internet that they should go and use your project. This can be a little like of a surprise, like maybe you thought you were making something really small, but you were actually making something like really, really, really big. But this is okay, because never forget you are the boss of you. And that means you get to decide if you want to be a mean boss or a nice boss. I highly recommend being a nice boss to yourself for like lots of reasons. One, you can't fire yourself, no matter how hard you try. Also, I think other people pick up a cue on how to treat you if you are mean to yourself. So don't do it. And it can be hard to climb back out. Code is not like art. So if you make art, like a painting or something, like no one will call you up and ask angrily, like, where should they put it? How should they hang it on the wall? They're not gonna come back and say like, hey, can you make a new painting that goes with my new couch? Because this one doesn't match anymore. And they're definitely not gonna say, can you make a totally different painting that does, on a completely different topic other than what you intentionally made this one for. So that's all to say that users will want things. And they will want things even though they got what you gave them for free, like raccoons in your yard. They don't come in and knock, they don't offer cash, they don't sign a contract, they just take the code and they go, right? So some of these things are not super weird, like they want features and fixes and changes, and I would highly recommend like giving them a specific place to ask for those things. So, you've got a repository, maybe you have a mailing list, that kind of thing. You can also be really clear about what you want on those channels. You do not have to just take any old comment or any old kind of request on those channels. So you can also be even, aside from like none of this, you can also be like, hey, if you are gonna file a bug, please describe what you were doing when it happened. If you're gonna ask for a feature change, maybe kind of like say a little bit more than like, should be faster, which is not that helpful. So you can be really specific about like the kinds of feedback and input that you want. Another thing that happens when you have made a project that is really popular is that you have inadvertently, without meaning to, become part of somebody else's business. You may not remember being hired, you might not remember being onboarded, you definitely can't find your desk, and yet you get a lot of requests from people that want things. The PSF gets a lot of these requests, so like it's like a lot. Some of my favorites are, hey, like can you send over a software bill of materials for like everything on PyPI? No. You can have a software bill of materials for CPython, but not for all the packages. We also get, can you send a really thorough security attestation, or can you sign this 75-page document wherein we offload any liability for using the code you're providing for free to you? Don't sign those. We don't sign those. I highly recommend you don't sign those. And so you don't have to be a jerk about it, but you do have to probably say something. So I would recommend like writing a letter, like a stock letter that's like, hey, this is provided for free as is. We are not interested in doing any kind of vendor relation things with you if we don't have a contract. Sometimes authorities want things, like they want to know like, oh, could you just give us information on every single person that's ever logged into PyPI? No. I don't recommend you do that either. And in fact, I don't recommend you even keep that information for very long because you can't give it if you don't have it. So again, you offer a little like, hey, I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but also no, we are not doing that. And you can have a stock letter for these kinds of things too, like a stock letter for requests about your trademark, a stock letter for requests about like, can I have all your user information data? Like all of these kinds of things, like a very short, polite letter that says, no, I'm not doing that. And that's like kind of helps you save your time, because it can be like kind of daunting to be like, whoa, a real lawyer wrote me a letter with like a lot of paragraphs and some scary words with like indemnity and liability and all this kind of stuff in it. That's their job. They're kind of like bears. That language makes them look really big, but they're just people. And you can send them a letter back that says no. Anyway, so this is all getting to like protecting your own spark. This is like a phrase that my friend Shauna Gordon McKeon likes to use. And this is like, you know, hey, you made this thing that's really nice and you did it because you were excited and you wanted to build like a thing that didn't already exist and now you've built it. And you're like, yay, that was really nice. And then the world wants to come in and maybe like, you know, death by 1,000 paper cuts. So a couple of things that you can do is to set expectations about like when and how you will be available to talk with people. I also highly recommend if you're only a single person or 2 people or even maybe 12 or 13 people, you tell people that like very often. Because, you know, if you've made something and they're like, oh, I kind of suspect there must be like 500 people working over there, then the response people want is really different than if you're like, hey, it's 1 person. Layoff. So you can kind of set like your own expectations for how much time you have, how much you're going to put in. And so I would highly recommend like kind of time boxing the access to yourself. So this means, you know, so that people are not calling you all the time. They can't get to you whenever they want to. One of the ways that you can do this is through office hours. So the steering council has office hours. The PSF board has office hours. The grants working group has office hours. So instead of like we're available 24/7 to answer any question that comes into anyone's head on any time zone in the world, we've said, here's the hour a month that we would like to hear from you. Like, so it does this thing where it's like, we do want to hear from you, but like, you cannot have my home phone number. So, you know, being really clear about that. I would say there are a couple of other things that you can do in this way. So if you're like at a conference like this and you have a Python package and you know people have a lot of questions, you could say like, hey, if people want to grab lunch, you can come talk with me about my project. So like they're not looking for you all over the venue. You're like, lunch on Thursday is when I am available to talk to people about the project. Or it's an open space, or maybe it's sprints, or maybe it's new user sprints, something like that. So you've decided like, okay, there's all of this going on. Here's the time I am available. And the implication, the heavy implication, is that you are not randomly available at all other hours. So like for unlimited time, right? So saving yourself time it's good. Like you really, because if your project is really popular, then the ratio of users to you keeps going up, right? So this is kind of a mess, but if you want to kind of have time to sit and not talk to people, then you have to set up expectations. You have to set up places where people can talk to you. All right. So this kind of leads into the next piece, which is like asking for help. So if you have a project that's really popular, it means a lot of people care about your project, which is great. I recommend asking for help early and often. So don't wait, like I've seen this happen. I was talking to someone who had a pretty popular math program, and they had been working on it for like 8 years, and they were like, I really haven't found anybody worthy to help me with the project. And I was like, ooh, worthy, what does that mean? Like, you're 8 years in, and you've just told me like you're drowning in requests and swamped with people wanting to like get you to do things, and you waited until you're 8 years in, so you would only accept a clone of yourself that didn't have their own project to do like all the things that you can do, and that's the only help you can accept. I'm like, I don't think it works like that. And I don't think the other you, they probably have their own software project, right? Like if they're your twin. So I recommend telling people what you want help with, like all the time. So if you want help with translation, then you might say like, hey, you know, the project needs help with translation, especially Spanish and Farsi. So you're like super, super specific. Or if you need help with the website, you're like, hey, we know the website is pretty basic. We could really use help if someone wants to step up and help with that. We would love that. You know, or if you need help like setting up an event for your project or for your users. So being really specific about the things that you want help with, like, I don't know if you've ever seen like a 2-year-old just have like a meltdown, like help, like on the floor, and you don't really know what to do with that. So you don't want to be like just, because no one's gonna know what to do with that. And it might make them a little less excited to help if you're not able to articulate what you need help with. One of the big ones I think that is really good, and people feel like, oh no, I have to do this all myself. You're actually not necessarily the best person to do user support help on your own project. So a thing that happens when you're really close to a project, like 10 years in or whatever, like you have all these little keystrokes that you do, and someone's like, hey, I don't know how to exit the program, and you're like, I have muscle memory and no longer remember how to tell people how to exit the program. So for user support help, I recommend that you try and get people who have just been there for like 2 to 6 months and get them looped in and say like, hey, like we're setting up this forum or we're setting up this channel or I'm drafting an FAQ, could you help me with that? So making the request to the people who remember when they didn't know how to exit the program, and then also like specifically asking and not just being like, could anyone help? So this is gonna yield a better result. Of course, you want to keep an eye on and make sure they're not, you know, telling people to RTFM or talk to the hand or whatever it is people say these days, you know, because they're sort of representing your project as well. So you want to do a little coaching and keep an eye on them and make sure they're giving user support help in the way that you want them to. Another big one is financial help. So there are a lot of ways to do this. So like there's lots of great passive ways, like you can do like GitHub sponsors, you can put a donation link on your website. And these are all really easy. You also, if you do want financial help, like you're like, I might do more things if people paid, then you have to tell them all the time. So some of these things you might consider doing is like listing projects that you would do if somebody sponsored you. So that somebody can come and be like, oh, like you would do that if we paid you? Like, okay, great. This has happened once for PSF, but it didn't take very long to set up. Like someone just was like, we found this repository of like things you would want people to give you money for. And we're like, yeah, we would still take money for that. I also think if you have a donation page, you should share it constantly, which I am modeling now. If you want to give the PSF money, we would love that. You can do it either as an individual or as a company. We're also open to discussing grants, especially for some of the work that we do that is harder for us to get grants for, like people love packaging and people love CPython development, but some of our community outreach work is a little harder to find money for. So that's me being really specific about what you could give us money for. And then once you have that page, you can share it with those people that we talked about earlier that keep asking you for things. Like if you've become part of their business and they are asking you for stuff all the time, you should be asking them for stuff, right? Like there's no reason why not. Like they're obviously using the code. They're obviously invested in continuing to use the code. So ask them for things like, you know, turn it around. Passive income we talked about. There are some other weird ones that you can do here too, like depending on what your project is. Like We sometimes partner with Humble Indie Bundle where people buy stuff and then a % goes to us. So if there's like someone who sells books about your project, maybe see if they want to hook you up with a 10, 20% of the profits on that. So there's a couple of other like more, creative ways to think about it. If your project only works on some certain piece of hardware, maybe you should have a conversation with the hardware vendor about getting a little cash for that. Another thing that's really interesting is in-kind support. So cash is king. People like cash, don't get me wrong. And that one's really good, but sometimes people can give you like a place to have a meeting. Like, I don't know if Diego's in here, but he just had his office host a massive sprint for the whole CPython core team. There's little claps because people are being polite. So that's like an office. Like the PSF didn't buy an office for the week. We got it donated to the CPython team, which is amazing. Sometimes people can donate other stuff like bandwidth or cloud credits, or sometimes it can be really like nuts and bolts. Like you want to have an event at a community college. They might donate the venue. And then I've seen people get coffee, ice cream, like lunch, all kinds of things, pencils, tote bags, whatever, like all kinds of stuff that kind of like make your events or your things good. I've also seen where a larger office, they're like, oh, we do have a couple of empty desks. If you want to come in here and work at one of those desks, like we could do that. So you don't know until you ask. There's all these things that people have extra of that is maybe sometimes easier for them to give you than actual cash, right? Okay. So, another question that you probably want to who else is on your team? Like, if your project works with another project, or it rests in a stack of libraries, or it's in a constellation of tools for a particular group of people, like it's education software, like you should be seeing, who else is doing education software? Maybe we should be talking together and collaborating and sharing resources. Or hey, this is a Python thing, where could I find other Python users? And that can kind of unlock who are your allies and who might be willing to pitch in and do stuff. So you could ask them for help with small stuff. Maybe they would let you set up a channel on their Discord server, or maybe they would let you have a room at their event or something like that. These can be really a win-win for both parties. So those are really good. You can also kind of think about help with the bigger stuff. So would taking cash make your personal taxes a nightmare? Then maybe you should get connected either with a for-profit business or a nonprofit and live under their umbrella as a special project. And this is big. This is they're basically partnering with you, right? We have a bunch of fiscal projects fiscal sponsory projects at the PSF that live under our umbrella, and they get to have a little bit of time from our accounting team. They get to have a little time from our social media and things like that. So they don't have to hire a whole person. And there are lots of little ways to do this. There are professionals that do trademark stuff for lots and lots of open source projects, and maybe you only need them to file one thing. There are accountants that do this. There are lots of people that work in this kind of fractional way. So you don't necessarily need to be oh no, now I have to hire an accountant and a lawyer and an office manager and all these other things. That's too much. The other thing that I think you could do, so if you're just one or two people, thinking about who else sits at the table and helps you make decisions. So I would say, if you can, you might want to set up a technical advisory board, or you might want to set up just an advisory board, a group of luminaries that go and make connections for you, or you set up an actual nonprofit board, or the equivalent of that. And that gives you more people that sort of feel invested in your project. And you want to be careful about who you choose here in a couple different axes. You want people who are invested in the project. You want a multiplicity of perspectives. And then some of the things are really hard to kind of retcon on your projects. So if you start with 3 white men, it's really hard later to get other people to come in. So if you are lucky, your project has just burst on the scene, you have the opportunity to like set the tone correct at the beginning, where it's like, all right, we're really looking to hear from every part of our community. And I would say that more perspectives are really healthy. Like you really want to have like, oh, if educators are using your software, then like you should have an educator on your board. And so like all of these different things can help you kind of get things done. You're basically like kind of trading maybe prestige for work. And this is, like asking people to be on boards and to be on technical advisory committees and things like that is kind of like, hey, I see you, and like, I like what you're doing, and I appreciate your commitment to Sparkle Motion. So like, come join the team. And I would say make the ask specific, right? Let people know like why you're asking them. Like, again, this is about like the way that you ask for help. If you say like, hey, I could just use warm bodies over here, like most people don't primarily think of themselves as a warm body and then like all the other things after. So if you can say something really specific like, oh, I've been watching your patching and I've been watching the way that you help new users. I think you're doing a really great job and you really understand what we're doing here. So you're buttering them up a little bit because you're about to ask for a big favor. But it's worth it. It is totally worth it. So, interesting times. Your project became really popular. And now you live in interesting times. And anything could happen because, I went the wrong way. Growth really follows a direct path. So your project might not grow in the same way that another one does. Like, anything could kind of contribute to growth. Like maybe the competing software that used to do this is deprecated, or maybe they had a big messy community thing and crashed and burned, and now people are coming to your code base. Or like it just happens to be like maybe some government was like, we really love your education libraries. We told the entire nation to adopt it, and it's like, oh no, like everyone, and you gave me what? No notice. Thank you. So your growth is not going to look like anybody else's growth, and that is totally okay. And then just to like remind, transparency is always your best bet. If you are two people, there is nothing to be gained by hiding that or pretending that there are 20 or 200 or 2,000 of you. There's also nothing to be gained by having people not understand why you have built the project and who it is for. Like, if you don't want it to be a business and get bought, then you should tell people that as opposed to be like, oh, I don't know. Because people ask you. I got something in the mail just the other day. Someone wanted to buy the PSF. And I was like, cool, you've never looked at our website or even the Wikipedia article, or like somehow you missed our entire reason for being for the last 20 years. Okay. So some people will not get it, but most people, if you are very transparent about what your goals and your intent is, will be more likely to ask you for things that you actually want to do. All right, so I wish you luck with your very popular project, and I would be happy to take a few questions. I don't know how we're doing questions, actually. Oh, microphone over here. Okay.
Thank you. All right. So what are a couple of examples of your favorite projects that the PSF have funded, works that's been done?
Oh, interesting. Like favorite projects that the PSF has funded. We have the grants program, which actually I would like to fund at double the rate we're funding it, because that seems to be the community need. But I love hearing the stories about how that's going. Another one of my favorites is also, we house the whole international network of PyLadies chapters. Yes, and the stories at the PyLadies lunch every year, people were like, Python changed my life, like my entire family's situation has gotten better, like I'm teaching everyone I can find to code. And those are all really great and inspiring stories. I mean, we have some great technical projects too, but some of those human stories, it's really kind of hard to top that.
How transferable would you say this advice is from like software projects to other things? So maybe like community efforts or that kind of stuff?
Yeah, actually very transferable, because so before doing Python, I was kind of doing general open source, and before that I was just kind of doing general nonprofit work. And so I think it's actually like, there is no project of any type where it behooves you to pretend to be more people, or to pretend to have more capacity than you have. And there's also no project, unless you're swimming, like just swimming in money, that could not use more volunteers. So like, I would see any project like talking about what you need early and often, like telling people like, and being honest about your capacity, letting folks know like at what interval you're able to get to things, what stuff is totally on your roadmap and what stuff is never gonna be on your roadmap. Like that helps you whether you're doing like an arts nonprofit or like, I don't know, like trying to set up a LARPing camp, you know, anything at all. Like just tell people what your capacity is and what you need help with.
I'm sorry, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Deb, for the insightful talk.
All right, I'm here for the rest of the day if you want to talk one-on-one.